Yes, I am on the West. So good afternoon if you're on the East Coast.
Am I the only one on this call so
So
far?
far, but you're 2 minutes early. So,
Okay, well, I wasn't sure if I was getting the right Zoom link now that we've migrated and I had to be in Mighty Network. So thanks for putting all of this together.
yep, we'll see what happens today. With the shift from Facebook to Mighty Networks, a lot of people seem to be connecting that weren't connecting before. So I'll be curious to see who shows up today.
Well, I'm hoping for your sake there's going to be a lot. I was going to actually ask you if you're getting discouraged because it seems like I would think you would just be inundated. You're so generous. You're putting yourself out there. There's been lots of marketing. I see your posts all over the place, but it doesn't seem like a lot of people are signing up. So I'm curious where you're sitting with this.
Well, the brief version of this is, of course, I launched this has it been 3 years? 3 years ago. So I launched it all about 3 years ago and had a lot of initial interest, but then realized I need to write a workbook for this and I need to formalize some things. So I took a break from it. And so I had about 70 people who signed up initially when I first launched it. And I think we were getting anywhere from 10 to 20 people on the weekly calls back then. And then I took the break. And when I came back a year ago, I said, okay, I'm going to relaunch this. The workbook's almost done, but I'm going to start doing these meetings, even if nobody shows up, just to get in the habit and just do it. And that would be my motivation to really get it launched. It took all of this year to get to this point where we could switch away from Facebook. The workbook's done.
Mm.
And now I'm working with somebody to start really pushing marketing out to actually sell it and charge money for it. So it's been a long-term plan. It's been a long time getting here, but now we're here. So our goal is by the end of the year, we want to get 100 people paying $100 a month signed up for it. Everybody who's already joined, like you, gets in for free for life, but the new people are going to be paying $100 a month. So
Well, good luck with that. I hope it works because it's an amazing, and I have been promoting it to my tribe, but yeah, I'm hoping it works for you because it's
well,
pretty
thank
great.
you.
Great
That's
service.
kind. Well, great. Well, let's talk about you, Catherine. How are things going with you?
Well, I was actually hesitant to join the call because I thought last time I joined, there was just me and one other person. And then I felt like the spotlight's on me. And I have to make a huge confession, Josh. I've been one of the first signers. I've done nothing with this. So now I'm ready to get back on the wagon. And I'm starting from scratch. I loved the Cal Newport video. That was perfect setup because that's me. I'm going to shift my thinking. I'm going to say my identity is one of discipline, and I'm going to do this. So, if you want to know a little bit of background, I've now narrowed it down to 3 topics. So, my goal for today is to have my topic set, and I'm just going to start writing. So, that's it. That's where I am at.
That's great. Well, I'm glad you're here. A lot of people sign up for courses and master classes and masterminds and things like this, and then don't do anything with it. I mean, it's
Mm,
like 95% of people who pay for stuff, even people who pay thousands of dollars for courses will pay and
yeah,
then never show up and
been
never
there.
do anything with it.
Mhm.
I've done it before. And so it's really common, but I want everybody to participate. I want everybody to write a book. So I'm glad that you're here and let's work together and make stuff happen.
Thank you.
Denise, good morning. Wes, good morning. At least if you're on the West Coast, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good to see you again, Wes.
Good morning, Josh. I just wanted to join real quick and say congratulations on starting this platform and everything else that you're just doing. It sounds like and it looks like everything's going really well. How is it for you?
It's a bit of a mad scramble. So getting everybody over from Facebook to Mighty Networks. I mean, it's easy for each individual person, but we're trying to do this for 200 people and get everybody moved over. And so we're messaging everybody individually and we're trying to let people know about the new network and answer questions. And I think we've had about 70 people move over so far. So that's great. And I hope we have more people showing up on the calls. And then we're going to start really marketing this thing during the next few months, running ads and stuff. So we're hoping to grow it. So it's been kind of crazy, but it's fun.
Yeah. Well, as long as you're continue to be good with it and consistent, it will do well. So I'm confident in that, Josh, and it looks like it is. even though it'll be some change right now. So kudos to you. Two, just the last time I joined, I spoke a little bit about how I have some training courses, leadership courses that I've already developed and used with my team. So right now I'm transitioning professionally out of my role currently from a CEO of my hospital, and I'm going to be doing a few other things. And part of that will be utilizing those training courses to try them with other teams. In some sense, I've already actually set up my LLC, and I'll be consulting / doing interim leadership and continuing to refine what I've already developed. So along that process, I mean, these are essentially 2 to 3 hour training courses that I've developed. But they're simple Word document, 2-page, 3-page at maximum, each of these training courses right now. But really it's an exercise. It's a training exercise. So like my one question this morning is, how do you foresee me, like, or how have you seen people derive from that, like a whole book kind of thing? I'm like, I know I could do it, and the stories and et cetera, but like initial thoughts on ideas on how I can start writing out like chapters, pages, et cetera, from this kind of thing.
Well, first off, tell me a little bit more about the audience that you're going after. Like, who exactly you want to read this book and respond to it?
So it would be initially, just because it's my default right now, is executive leadership from CEOs to directors in hospitals. Now, leadership principles can be applied to any organization, right? But essentially, it's the leadership management of organizations.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Cool. By the way, my marketing agency, we do a bunch of work with hospital chains. And so I know your target audience and who you're going after. So what reaction do you want them to have to your book? They read your book, and then what do you want to have happen?
I want them to, one, improve, become their best selves, and then also improve their performance. I mean, those are the two things really are the impetus of what I want to do.
Okay. And do you want them to reach out to you? Do you want to do consulting for them? Do you want to speak or train, or what do you get out of it other than the satisfaction of knowing that they're reading it and implementing it?
Absolutely. So ideally, yes, consulting, public speaking, absolutely. Those are, I mean, that's as I build, and this is part of the reason why I want to go do interim leadership. So I build relationships with other organizations, and if I perform well, then I can continue a consulting arrangement with them ongoing.
Okay. And essentially, you are the person that you're writing this book for, right? I mean, you're writing it for people who are in the position that you are currently in, right?
Correct.
So what is it that you wish you would have known 15, 20 years ago that you now know, but you wish you had known before, that you're going to put in your book and share with these people that they might not know, but they're going to value?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good question. Well, even in the 4 years that I've been the CEO of my current organization, I've learned, I write them out. 286 leadership principles, and all of those 286 principles, I would have loved to have known 4 years ago, even. I mean, there's anything from simple nuances with how to work with physicians, providers, to how to engage with the board better. How to really, those are primarily two of the major ones. Also, I do a lot of recruiting in my position for the hospital and clinical services that we want to provide our community. So I wish, man, we've really excelled in certain ways. So there's those things. I mean, I would have loved to have been able to know all of the stuff that I've had to work through the last 4 years, including with COVID. So there's a whole lot there, but good question.
So those 286 principles, could you organize those into categories, like 5, 10, 20 different categories?
Yeah, I'm sure I could.
I mean, because that sounds like a book right there. I mean, you organize those into categories, there are your chapters, and then you just write about each of those principles. I mean, you've got easily a 286-page book right there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I love it.
I mean,
Okay.
does that sound like something that would achieve your goal of attracting attention from these executives at hospitals and get them to reach out to you and say, hey, we love what this guy is sharing in his book, and we should bring this
Yeah.
guy in to talk to us and consult with us?
Yeah. Maybe what I need to do is organize those, and then just assess. I had a list. I mean, I have them all in just a simple Word doc, and maybe I need to organize it and think, is this going to add value to people? Is this really going to, are they going to be interested into it? So good question.
It sounds like a place to start, at least. I mean, if I were in your shoes, I would do that. I would organize that. I'd start putting it into categories or chapters, and then take a stab at writing one of those chapters and see if it falls into place. And if it feels good and you feel like, yeah, this is good stuff, I wish I had had this 20 years ago, then sounds like you
Yeah.
might be onto something there.
Cool. Love it. I've done this. I mean, the 286 are just in my current role, and my prior roles, I've done this for the last 15 years. So I have other Word documents for each role that I've been in for the last 15 years. So maybe I can like conglomerate all of them and then categorize them and use that as a starting point. I mean, there's a ton. I mean, it's a lot. It's over more than a decade. So it's a really good idea. Love it. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. That's all I have for today. But again, kudos for you starting what you're doing, and I look forward to seeing how it goes.
Cool. Great. Thanks, Wes. Welcome, Bruce. Welcome, Nicole. Glad to see you here. Bruce, this is your first time, I think, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Well,
Thank you
welcome.
for
We're
inviting
glad
me.
we're glad to have you here. Does anybody need to go soon? Because I know times people pop in, they're like, I just have 10 minutes. I need to ask my question real quick. Does anybody need to go and ask their question because they have to run off to something?
No, but I'll need to drop at 1.
Okay, great. Welcome, Nicole. Good to see you again. Well, I know Denise, and I already talked to Catherine and Wes. Bruce, maybe we will let you introduce yourself. And I know Nicole. Bruce, maybe we'll let you introduce yourself a little bit, since you're a new face here, and let us know who you are and what you're doing and what you're looking to do with a book.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Josh. Hello, everyone. So Bruce Kirk, Captain Kirk. My company is Competitive Edge Selling. I'm in the Philadelphia area. I love Philadelphia. I love history. In case the hint, you know, my hint didn't get. But yeah. So I've been I've got a lot of ideas in my head to write, but the purpose would be to share, like you were saying with Wes, you know, what I've learned over the years, and then um, have people read that, but motivate them, inspire them, or be a catalyst for having a one-to-one conversation, one meeting from them. My question, I guess, would be, um, you know, prior to this, I've been working conceptually, looking for an ebook, you know, to write an ebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering your thoughts about that before a physical published book. But to give some context to that, so my daughter and husband are PhD candidates, and they're writing their dissertation. And my son-in-law got hired by an organization to expand his dissertation into a physical book. So that's kind of like, you know, similar in concept to what I had been thinking. Start with an ebook and then move, you know, write a couple ebooks and then combine them together as a published book. But they're so the dissertation's kind of like a precursor to the full published book.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's your background? What's your experience in, and what do you want to write about?
Yeah, sure. So I do sales strategy, implementation, coaching for that strategy. One of the concepts that I've developed is in the sales industry, it's kind of expanding out to other industries as well, is be a great storyteller. And I've seen so many salespeople tell stories at the wrong time. So I came up with concept, and I'm building a methodology around it called story listening. So, when you first approach a new prospect, you want to learn how to draw out their story so that you can, and there's a process and a methodology to that. So that's one concept. Put that in an ebook. But I've also come up with another program, which I'm calling the effective estimator. So the verticals, the niches that I prospect into and market into are construction estimators, architectural estimators that know how to work behind a desk and behind a computer and with architectural drawings and do great working with numbers. But when it comes to interacting with people, they face plant. So to build out and write an ebook about that can be a precursor to them joining a workshop that I hold, or a public workshop or have a in-house workshop.
So these ebooks, how long do you envision them being? I mean, if we're talking pages, are we talking 10 pages, 30, 50, 80?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say 10 to 15, ideally, where they can read it and digest it in one or two sittings, one or two flips, because people's attention spans have shortened since social media and the smartphones. But yeah, where they can get, wow, this is really great. Let me talk to Bruce, or let me I want to have him in for my estimating and talk to my estimating team.
Okay, great. Well, that's certainly a viable path to take, to publish ebooks and start out with that. Generally, when somebody says, should I just do an ebook? I'll say, well, it's so easy to do the print book, at least a paperback. If you've already done the ebook, you might as well do it. But where it is just 15 or 20 pages, it might just make sense to just do it as an ebook. And then later, maybe you can expand that into a longer book and turn it into a print book. There's a company, I always like to find people who have done what I want to do before, so I can just kind of copy what they've done and not have to reinvent the wheel. There's a company called Sense and Respond Press. I just put a link to their website in the chat, and they specialize in doing short books. They actually have a little timer thing in the upper right corner of the book covers that tells you how long it's going to take. And their books take 40 minutes to read, 50 minutes to read. So these are really short books that they've published, but I think it's a good template perhaps for what you're looking to do. There's another, there's a, if you've ever heard of Dan Sullivan or Strategic Coach, it's this business group. Have you heard of them, Bruce?
Yes.
So Dan has a bunch of books. One second. So these are physical books, but these are really short. I mean, you can kind of see they're very thin books, and half of these are illustrations. And so if you look through these, I mean, there are a lot of pages where it's illustrations like this, kind of like comic bookish. And even the pages that have print on them, the print is really large. So it's probably the equivalent of a 15-page ebook, but he has turned them into physical books. The thing with doing physical books like this is it is a bit of work to get it done, whereas an ebook is very quick and easy, and doing the ebook allows you to test out your content and see if it works and see if people are interested in it. And then if you get a lot of interest, you can always do a new version that has illustrations or is a little bit fancier later. So, but I'm a big fan of just doing stuff that's quick and dirty. I know people appreciate the content. If it's valuable, they'll use it, regardless of illustrations, regardless of whether it's fancy or not. It just has to work for them and give them the information they need. And a simple ebook will do that. So I think it's a great place to start and test out the market. And then later you can
just
expand
add a
if
little
you
layer
want.
to it. Is just it's kind of writing a larger book in small snippets is the concept that I had. That I write a chapter at a time and test it.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for the link and the concept idea.
Another path you could take is to blog it. Instead of doing ebooks, you can just put it out there as blog posts, and each blog post can be a chapter. It'd be a long blog post. But that's another way that you can test the content and write it as you go and edit it as you go and go back and revise things. And a lot of people will blog, and then once they have enough blog posts, they'll put it all together and publish it as a book. So that's another option. But yeah,
Yeah, I just had an article published in June, so that's a great idea. I hadn't thought about that.
yeah. Well, great. Well, Denise, how are things going with you?
Well, as I saw in your email this week, I think I'm in the vomit stage. But for those of you that don't know that or didn't see Josh's email, like first draft is just vomit, just get it out. Don't expect it to be good. It probably isn't. It's going to have all these starts and stops. Wes, it was interesting to me what you were saying about course to book. I'm actually going the other way. I'm writing the book so that then I can create a course around it with the objective of like, and I haven't figured out the marketing or the exact structure yet, but something of the take the course and get the book as an upsell, or just buy the book separately. You know, somehow it's all integrated, but it's the same content. Because in my book, I'm trying to teach people a different way of thinking about creating events. I'm in the corporate events world. And I'm trying to help people think less transactionally and more experience design so that they can elicit a meaning and impact. And so I'm going to have worksheets, and, you know, I do a little strategy and then creative and then sort of logistics. So in the course, we would go through these worksheets. You know, I find if I read a book and there are activities or worksheets, I very often don't do them. I look at them and I go, oh, that would be nice. I should sit down and do that. And then I don't do it. So the course would be the forcing function to actually go through those activities. I'm at an interesting place. I will say it's a real mental thing to sit down and do this. It's a real mental thing. I mean, all these things about myself and good enough and who would read it, and am I repeating words, and is my tone even the right tone? That's all happening. I'm trying not to freak out too much, because I read and heard from you, Josh, and other friends that I have that have written books. Super normal. Just don't evaluate, don't judge, just get it out in the first draft. But Josh, I have something that is happening. So I'm almost done with a first pass of what I would say the structure, you know, like chapters. It's a short book. Right now it's 55 pages, but this is before a couple things. It's before I integrate stories from interviews. So right now it's mostly my point of view. I have not integrated interviews, and it's before worksheets. So in the end, it will be probably, a little bit bigger. Here's my question. As a method of writing, and because I'm trying to change how people think, I am finding that I ask my reader a lot of questions. There are a lot of questions that I am asking the reader in my book. And, it's, have you thought about this? What would happen if this? And that's both intentional, because I want them to change the way they see things, but it also could have a slippery slope, because maybe they're going to just skim past the questions, and then they're not really going to understand that that's a place that they really need to think. Am I articulating that okay?
I think so. I mean, you want them to stop and think to actually get the value from the exercise, but if they're skipping it, I mean, what you're really asking is, how do I make them stop and think so they don't just skip those parts? Because then what's the point?
Right. Or I guess the secondary question is, am I taking the wrong approach? And I shouldn't ask the reader many questions. I should use them as statements and then support them with a story.
here's what I would say. Don't worry about it right now. Write
Okay.
it one way or write it the other, but don't
Yeah.
stew on this, because this is going to stop you from writing. You're going to get hung up on this technical detail of should I ask questions or should I not? I would
Mhm.
focus on getting all that information out still
Okay.
and leave this for later. Say, I'm going to
Oh.
decide whether to ask questions or not later when I'm editing this, but I'm not going to do this during the brainstorming, vomit, brain dump part of writing this book.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Just check it off and say, I'll deal with this later.
Awesome. Yeah. And if for those of you that haven't started, like this is it's a mental thing. It is a very mental thing.
Yeah, it is. It is for everybody. Just like you said that people are telling you, it's hard for everybody. It's a hurdle to get over. And the trick is really to just not care. Just, you can tell yourself all sorts of things to try to play with your brain and convince your brain. I mean, you can tell your brain, nobody else is ever going to see this. It's just me, just you and me, brain, seeing this draft. Nobody else will ever see this, so it doesn't really matter what I put down. So I can just put down everything and I don't have to worry about it, because literally nobody will ever see this, at least not this draft. And then I'll worry about the rest of it later. And you can tell yourself that nobody will ever see the book at all. You're just writing it for yourself and you don't even mean to publish it. You can trick your brain into believing that. And then later you can betray your brain and actually publish it. So there are all sorts of mental games you can play. But trust me, all of you, everybody has experience that's valuable to somebody else out there. There's somebody else out there that wants the knowledge and experience you have. And so yeah, your book might not be a New York Times bestseller, but there might be 200 people out there who are like, this is exactly what I needed. This person has the experience that I wish I could tap into. And here's this book, and that's exactly what I need. And maybe it's only 200 people, but still, that's 200 people. That's kind of a big deal for those 200 people. So, but don't worry about that stuff now. Just tell yourself there's somebody out there that needs this, and I'm going to write it for that one person. And hopefully there's more than one person, but I'll just focus on that one person for now. We all play these.
Thank you.
We all play these head games trying to justify why we're spending the time and effort to write this book and get it out there. And anything you can think of that helps, just latch onto that and use it. All right. Nicole, you got any questions for us today?
No questions. I did end up starting writing at that lovely historic library by my home, and that has been a game changer for me writing.
Great. Yep. That's good. It's good to find a good place where you can actually get stuff done. I am struggling with that myself. I actually booked 2 days in a hotel last week to go work on my client's book, and I ended up getting distracted by work stuff and didn't work on it a single bit at all. So it's tricky.
I don't know if there's any place like that in Arizona, but it's a research library, so it's not like a regular library. We're gonna have a lot of kids and other folks who need to use the computers and stuff, and quiet as can be and beautiful.
Yep. Yeah, I'm thinking I might need to get one of those old things that you used to write books on called a typewriter, and I just go and sit with the typewriter and leave my phone and computer at home and I just type.
That's a cool idea.
Disconnecting is tough for me. That's my challenge. And there
Actually,
are people doing that these days.
I would say, Josh, that I'm finding, like, if I have LinkedIn open or Slack open, it's not some good writing. It's just too fragmented.
Yeah.
Bought a cheap laptop, and the only thing that's on there is my draft, nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. There are people that do that. They're kind of electric typewriters these days. I mean, it's basically a computer, but all you can do is type documents on it. It's not connected to anything. So I keep experimenting with different stuff, trying to find my groove and what works for me. But it's tough. It's tough for everybody. All right. Well, with 6 people on this call today, or 5 people on this call, and bye, Wes. Good to see you. We've got time for more questions, so we can dive into more depth with anybody. Catherine, Bruce, Denise, if you want to dive in deeper, we can dive in deeper with any of you. Catherine?
I'd like to springboard a little bit off of what you did with Wes, because
Mhm.
my audience is CEOs, directors, presidents of academia, of colleges, universities. That's my background. So that's why I can feel like I can write to myself, and definitely writing material that I wish somebody had given me 10 years ago. It would have
Mhm.
made a huge difference to my leadership and certainly to my mental health and well-being, and probably my effectiveness as well. The other thing is, this is the same things that I'm currently already coaching as an executive coach to this audience, and it's the feedback I'm getting, and it's also the workshops that I'm giving that people are contracting me for in these organizations. So my question is, because I really resonated what you said to Wes, and then I'm thinking, okay, so I can take the workshops I'm already doing and the topics that I'm already coaching clients around. How do you then really say, okay, what book? Because it's like, I'm back where I was 3 years ago. So I just ignored it. I have so many topics. I have so many workshops. What do I pick? How do you pick the one when I've narrowed it down to 3? What would be some of the criteria you would say, okay, if these are all valuable? And actually this summer I had another client that said, when are you going to write your book on this? So it's like, okay, so there's too many topics. I feel like that's my scatter.
Mhm.
What would you say to help say, okay, I agree, do the vomit thing, do the writing, be disciplined instead of procrastinate because I can't decide, if that's making any sense to you?
Yeah, a lot of people end up in that space where you have more than you know what to do with. You have too many books inside you. And the question is, which one of these do I do first?
Mhm.
It's better to choose anything than choose nothing and just be paralyzed and not do something. So that's always my first recommendation is, if you can't choose, just choose one and go with it. And if it doesn't work out, you can always pivot and switch over to another one. But if we're really trying to narrow it down and choose the right one, it really depends on what your goal is. If your goal is, I want to get more speaking gigs or consulting or coaching, training jobs, then there might be one of those topics that is the one that draws people in, that hooks people. And it might not be the one that you feel like people get the most benefit from, but it might be the one that hooks people and draws them in to begin with.
Yeah.
And then once you have them hooked and drawn in, well, then you can write your second book. That is the one that you feel like really changes people the most. But it's really about the hook, because if you don't hook people, then you don't get the job and you never have a chance to really get them more in depth with the stuff that's more life-changing for them. Is there one that stands out that way as being kind of the one that really hooks people and gets them interested?
Yeah, so the two that are the most high demand is one is the 5 habits of resilient leaders. They want to build their resiliency. So I give them a very clear framework that here's the drivers of it, so that you can survive in a constantly changing world when you're burned out and you want to find your joy in work. So resilient leadership is the one. And the other one is the antidote to time management. Everybody has these time management hacks that are not working, and they are just going faster on the hamster wheel. So I have antidotes to that, and totally think differently about managing your time and energy. Those are the two, but those are practical. The one that to me is way more valuable is the inside out leadership, leading yourself first. But that's what comes after we have these conversations. Then they understand that that's the value. So I don't think that's the hook. That's just what I see as more valuable. So the first two, I think, are the ones that people will call me for first.
Gotcha. As soon as you said 5, sorry, how did you put it? The 5 things.
The 5 habits of resilient leaders.
5 habits of resilient people. Okay, that made me think of this Forbes article here. This is the most popular Forbes article ever on the Forbes website. And it's all because of the title. Articles aren't necessarily popular because of the article. They're popular because the title hooks people and draws them in. And when you said the 5 habits of resilient people, it made me think of this. And so there's a similarity there, right? You're on to something that people care a lot about. This actually was written by a friend of mine, and in the first year, it got something like 10 million views on this article or something. They've never had an article be anywhere close to this successful on the Forbes website. And then the subject of it, Amy Morin, she actually ended up writing a book called this, and it became a best-selling book. So it's definitely a topic that people are very keyed into, and I can see why that would be a great hook for you. So, and that's a great book title. I mean, the 5 habits of, if you did the 5 habits of highly resilient people, that would be a little bit too much like 7 habits, right? But
yeah, and it feels too much like plagiarizing the very, very big famous Covey one. So I thought you can change it, but it actually is. These are 5 factors that you build this into your practice. It will change the way you lead. And I'm really focused on leaders, not on just people in general. So
yeah. There are ways you could tweak that wordsmithing a bit to make it not sound so much like 7 habits. I mean, the 5 factors of highly resilient people, or the 5 factors of resilient leaders, or something like that. He was really onto something with that 7 habits title, though. It's very catchy. But that sounds like a great one to hook people. And then what are the other 2 topics then?
the one was the antidote to time management, just because people try all these time hacks that's so popular out there, but they're not working. They are just as burned out and tired as ever. So it's just about thinking differently about time management and doing it. It's actually doing the opposite of what we have been buying into. So that's the one. And the other one is the inside out leadership, where people don't understand the need for really developing their inner core before you start doing all the outer work of a leader. So they hire me to do the outer work, like building teams and making decisions and bringing results, but they've neglected their inner part that is so critical to increasing your performance as a leader. So those are the 2 other ones. And I got a couple more, but those would be my top 3 that I get hired for.
Okay. I think the 5 factors or 5 habits of resilient people, that stands out to me as the best one to start with, the best hook, partly because the other 2, they focus on things that people are uncomfortable with. Like people don't particularly, people are tired of time management, right? It's like, time management, I got to get a handle on this. Like, it's kind of almost a downer to even think about getting that in control. I think we all feel as soon as somebody brings up time management, it tends to bring up some negative feelings in the sense of, I've tried this so many times and nothing has worked, right? And so then you have to get past that and say, no, there's hope, there's a way to do this, or I've got something that's going to make things better. But you have to get past that initial hurdle of people saying, time management, right? And then the inside out, it requires a little bit more explanation. And it's also saying you need to work on yourself a bit, which people often skip over because, again, people just want to get to doing stuff. And sometimes they don't want to do the work that it takes inside to be able to be that good outside leader. Whereas the 5 habits of resilient people, that's immediately taking me to a place of, oh yeah, that's who I want to be. I want to be more resilient. Like, it's instantly positive. Does that make sense, the way I'm explaining this?
Yes. And I appreciate you feeding it back to me, because when you say it, I hear it. And I see that perspective.
And so I think it's an easier sell. I think it's more positive instantly. And I think for that reason, and it's easy to understand. It's just drop dead easy. 5 habits of highly resilient people. You know exactly what the book is. There's no mystery. There's no explaining. That's just easy. And so I think it's a better hook for that reason. And so I think that's a great one to lead with, because if you're successful with that first book, then you can leverage that success to write the other books, and they'll be successful because of the first book.
Okay. And the other thing that I didn't mention that you've been asking others is, the purpose of my book is to build credibility for my business. Even though I got enough referrals, I need to move off of referrals. I need to market better. So it's a credibility piece, as well as hopefully to build my coaching business. That's really the purpose.
Yeah. And the great thing about a book is, once you have a book out there like this, it explains what you do. And so people are coming to you and they're pre-qualified because they've read your book and they say, hey, I love your book, I want to hire you. You don't have to explain the whole book to them because they've already read it, and you can really hit the ground running with people, which is better for everybody. It's better for you. It's better for them. And it's a great thing. So, well, great. Well, do you have any other questions, Catherine?
No, because that was my goal. I needed to decide so I can get now disciplined. So thank you. I've hit my goal for today. And it's been a pleasure meeting everyone else because I learn a lot from these other discussions as well. So thank you.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you. All right. Anybody else? More questions? Can we go in deeper with what you're working on? Bruce, Nicole, Denise.
I mean, if you wanted to read my vomit, that would be awesome.
Yep. Well, show us what you've got. Do you have an outline, or what have you got?
Denise,
Well,
I'm
I do.
glad you didn't say you can taste my vomit.
I do have an outline that I keep a printed copy of.
Uh-huh.
And then I will show you, it's a Google Doc. Let's see. So I've changed the title 15 different ways. And then this is sort of my chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So
this is actually exactly how I write my books too. I use Google Docs and I use that outline feature on the left. So
oh, great. What I haven't done is, so within the chapters, I have like little things that I want to make sure I talk about, but they're not necessarily linear. So I didn't have like sub bullets here as an outline. It's sort of, I go into the chapter and, you know, this would be a sub bullet. So see, here's like a question. So one of the things I'm thinking of is at the end of the chapter to put all the questions that I have, you know, within the chapter. And then like, here's an area that I know I need to write about, but I haven't. And then I'm noting here, like, how am I going to talk about tools and how will they get to the tools? I haven't figured that out yet. But as you said, it's vomit.
Yep.
You know, so I've got like these little areas, and then I'm kind of writing to it and trying not to go back and read it too much, but I am doing that a little bit. I am going back and reading. What I have not done is taken the interviews that I've had and start integrating the interviews, because when I actually interviewed people, it was before I started writing. And if I were to do it differently, or if I do more interviews, I'm going to change how I interview people, because I'm not actually getting them to answer this stuff. I'm hearing their stories. And so now I got to figure out how to integrate that in. I mean, you know, here's the next chapter. They're short chapters, but I mean, they don't need to be long. I don't want to just write long things because other people do.
Right.
You know, I want it to be kind of actionable, because at the end I want to give them tools so that they can, you know, there's a tool about how to get into our audience's shoes and figure out what they need to know, think, and do. I mean, I think I'm doing it in a way that at least it's getting it out. And, you know, but it's all over the place. I have bullet points. I have little heads, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it should be all over the place right now, and it should be a mess.
Okay.
It's just, we just don't worry about this stuff at this point. It's
keep going.
Yeah, it's just supposed to be a mess. I mean, the goal at this point with your first draft, your vomit draft, is to say, I'm going to collect everything that's good and relevant and just stick it in one document. I'm not worrying about order. I'm not worrying about how it sounds or grammar, punctuation, or spelling. I'm not worrying about anything. I'm just trying to get all the stuff in one place. And that's quotes, that's interviews, that's your thoughts, it's ideas. Nothing else matters, but just collecting all of that in one place. Once we have it in one place, then we start saying, what order should I share this in? Or how should I make this sound? Or what's the best way to communicate this? That's all second draft. None of that should be happening in the first draft. First draft should just be collecting all the stuff and getting it on paper. That's it.
So basically what I'm hearing you say is just keep going.
Yeah, just keep
Like
going. Just
I'm
keep
doing the
collecting
work.
stuff.
I'm doing the work.
Yeah, you're doing the work. If you're doing any work,
Okay.
you're doing the work. It really doesn't matter. So much of this work at this stage
Yeah.
too is just you figuring out what this book is and what you think about certain things, because you might have an idea that, like, I'll just choose one at random, empathy. You might say,
Yeah.
somewhere in this book, I need to talk about empathy. Okay, what am I going to say about empathy? Well, wait, what do I think about empathy in this industry? Or how does that even relate? You're going to start writing, and your writing becomes a way of thinking about it. You might not know what you think until
Right.
you start writing and working on it. And then you figure it out, and you get to the end of writing a bunch of stuff and you're like, I've never actually thought about this before. I'm not writing down what I think. I am thinking as I write. This is how I'm thinking about it and how I'm developing these ideas. One of my clients, he's in commercial real estate. And when we started writing, he had this vague idea of the book he wanted to write. And by the time he got to the end, it was a different book. And he came back and he said, the biggest benefit to writing the book, he said, I got the biggest benefit out of this before I even published the book, because writing the book changed what I thought about my industry. And I ended up changing my entire business and the way I run my business based on the process of writing the book. So he thought he was going to write a book based on his experiences, but in reality, he ended up changing everything that he thought based on the process of writing the book, and then ended up with a completely different book than he expected at the end of it. So you'll go on this journey to some extent as well, writing this book. You're going to change what you think about what you do and what you've done as you go through the book. That's great. That's fine. If it makes the book better, that's awesome.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's hard, but
Yep.
I'm just trying to drop stuff in. So I'll just keep doing it. I do the second guessing, and I do the, why am I sitting here spending 2 hours doing it? Is it worth it? Should I be doing something else? All the things.
Yep. All the things, but don't think about it. 'Cause at some point, just keep your eye on the goal. Like, at some point, you're going to hold that book and you're going to say, I did it. It's like running a marathon. I did it. I accomplished something. I hit this goal. And then you'll think about, okay, now how do I actually get this book out there and market it, and who's going to read it and all that?
Yeah.
It'll take care of itself.
I will say, having thought of that already, because of the course and everything, I've not succeeded in this, but I put a little lead magnet in my LinkedIn, and I'm starting to put the lead magnet in my signature if I do a LinkedIn post, just to try and start getting mailing list subscribers.
That is great. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it's infant, but I've thought about it.
Yeah, that's great. You're ahead of 99% of authors out there just by doing that.
Awesome. Okay. You're giving me more confidence. Thank you.
Yes. If that's the only thing I can do with this group, then it's worth it, because so many people are held back, and it's just a confidence game. It's just a head game of convincing yourself that it's worth doing. And it is. You'll figure it out. You will figure out how to make it something worth doing. All right. Well, great. Any other questions? Anybody want to go into anything? I've got this time blocked out, so I'm happy to stay here as long as anybody else wants to talk. But if everybody's got all their questions answered, then we can also stop early. But I'm happy to talk as long as anybody else wants to go.
I absorbed great stuff, and about all I can absorb right now. Or well, yeah, I could absorb more, but everything that I sought to accomplish here today. So
You're ready to get going and actually do stuff, right?
thank you, Josh. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Well, thank you,
Thanks,
Bruce.
everyone.
And thank you, Catherine, Nicole, Denise, for being here. I'm looking forward to continuing this group and seeing it grow over the next few months and years. And we will talk to you next week. Hope you're there.
Awesome.
And
Have
hope
a
you
good
great
weekend.
week.
Nice to meet everyone.
Buddy.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.